from America's finest city. This is Real Talk San Diego on ESPN 1700.
What's happening, gang? You are back live in San Diego. Enough of that regional stuff, right, Steve? Got to keep it local right now, San Diegans. Live in the secret stash, hanging out with my man, Jeremy Beck. Tracking down some cool local people. Jerry, you're a cool local person.
Thank you.
Hopefully talking about some cool local stuff. Who knows, maybe grabbing a story or two in the process with a singular goal each week between 10 and noon on Tuesday to leave you a little better than how we found you. I'm your host, Jesse Abanias, co-founder of the Greenhouse Group, helping folks get into and out of homes and financing them in between. That's what we do down there in the heart of San Diego at the Greenhouse Group. You want to learn more about us and what we do, how we might be able to help you, go to thegreenhousegroupinc.com. Jeremy, this is a show that I look forward to every month, my man. This is where we get a chance to sort of coalesce from looking at a bunch of numbers and get an idea of a couple themes of what's going on here locally in our real estate markets. We call this the monthly State of the Union show, right?
Sure. You call it something different every time.
I try to. I got to keep it fresh. So, and I think the important context to dive right into is to sort of put a grade on everything right now, right? So We're going to sink down into these numbers 2, 3, 4-fold by the time our hour's up. But overall, like, how you feeling about where the market's at right now?
It's really interesting. We see people continuing to receive this generous gift of lowering interest rates. They're holding tight despite all the indicators and the pundits claiming they're going to be flying upward here soon. I'm not a realtor, so I don't play that side of the game, but housing prices seem to be playing ball with everybody, going in the right direction, but slowly.
Playing ball. Now, be more specific about that, because you could look at that two different ways, like playing ball for sellers or playing ball for buyers.
Sure. I kind of feel like it's split in the middle right now. From my third-party perspective, my buyers still can afford homes that they want to get into, and it seems that sellers are selling, so there must be a drag there, but I'm sure you'll talk a little bit more about that.
Well, let's start with Fannie Mae. The big brother there, maybe with its only twin, Freddie Mac, to be able to purport these, the sentiment perhaps through numbers.
Right.
They talk first and foremost about their home purchase sentiment index, which I know you wake up every day and you turn on immediately, like, because this guides your life.
Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing.
With push notifications on your phone. No, but it does tell an interesting story, though. It's never been high. Well, I'd say in the last month or so, relatively speaking, it's never been higher than what it's been right now. What do you think that tells us?
Driving forces.
Exactly.
I mean, people want to move. They want to make moves, whether it's buying, purchasing. Those might be the same things in some people's vernacular. Selling.
Yeah,
right.
Sentiment's high right now to make some moves, right?
Action.
And if you're actually in the spot right now where you're thinking about making some moves, well, make a move over to our Twitter handle, over at Follow the Stash, and you can actually ask a question live. We're streaming this entire show live right now on our Twitter handle, at Follow the Stash. And you could tweet your question, Jeremy or myself, and we'll be able to get it on the air for you. And you can always call in, too, 866-405-1717, in case you got a question for the guru.
Live calls.
Sitting across from. So what about the context, I think, of real estate in general, right? So the next stat that I grabbed a hold of was also from NAR, the National Association for Realtors. They talked about the economic impact of homes sold. Now, this is interesting, right? Because this is, you might say, some people almost call it the sunshine tax. You know, it's like every article you pull up, it makes it harder and harder for someone to buy a home here relative to the amount of wages and stuff like that. But everybody loves it here, and we continue to get people to flock here in numbers. California has one of the highest economic impacts of homes, every home that's sold out of any other country, state in the union. What is that telling us?
You know, that's a really good question. I think maybe rather than answering that question directly, what it says to me is the drive that you see in the government to keep housing prices affordable, to have these programs like FHA, to do down payment assistance programs. These are driving factors in the economy, and if you'll monitor each one of these times when someone says, oh, rates are going to go up, or we need to lower the amount of assistance that home buyers are getting, you'll see this huge political pushback. And this is part of what we're talking about. Home turnover, home building, home sales, they're a huge economic driver. And so this is a really important conversation to have.
And what comes up for me is I remember the stat, and I'm going to bastardize this because I got this second-handed when it was coming. But I remember, like, during the boom, it was something outrageous, like a majority of people who were self-employed in San Diego County were somehow connected to the housing market.
Right.
You know, they were either tradesmen or contractors or title insurance or escrow or agents or lenders.
Yeah.
And in California, it seems to be that you hold on to your hat, you beg, borrow, and steal to get your name on something, because chances are, either directly or indirectly, it's going to positively affect you if you can get in the game.
It's a really interesting idea. I mean, almost every industry you can think of is somehow involved in homes.
Well, we saw that with the meltdown, right?
Yep.
And the fallout and how it totally crushed the economy. So that's interesting. So, and by the way, not just for nothing, but we actually have the highest economic impact out of every other state, including New York.
Saw that.
Which is kind of interesting. So cool. So moving on. The demand, definitely there. Foot traffic, definitely there. But what's interesting is to the tune with which it's still there. So NAR released another data report about this. So the number of properties that are being shown by agents right now, so when they get a chance to kind of go back in and ask them, poll, hey, you know, what's how many people you have at your open house? It's literally 25% higher than it was this time last year. This time last year, everybody was like, oh, man, the prices are crazy. It's through the roof. It's tapped out. Right. What does that tell you?
Yep. Demand being up, that's what's pushing these prices, and we can see the consistency. I mean, demand, you have to imagine, is dictating value and price, right?
And future sales.
Sure.
Right.
And so we haven't seen that drop off yet.
And that's the critical part right now because, you know, if you are a naysayer and you're looking at the relationship of available rates to available prices of homes, to how much money people are making. That's the old triangular, what do they call that? The affordability index, right? Which is what all pundits kind of hang their hat on. And the only thing that could possibly trump that, if you're looking at that and it seems to be kind of tapped out, is do people still want to buy?
Right.
And they're actually out in droves to a tune of 25% higher than this time last year. Interesting, especially as we're going into a shoulder season.
A shoulder season?
Yeah.
I don't know that term.
Well, fall. Shouldering into winter, which traditionally you're told is sort of a off season in real estate. Although in San Diego it does not apply because we don't have snow. You know, we usually kick butt till the end of the year.
It's real hard to get to those open houses when it's 60.
Well, it's 80. What are you talking about? Okay, good. So cruising through here a little more. Household formations. Now, we've been kind of trending up under 1% here for the last, almost decade, like about 8 years significantly.
Yep.
And that number was through the roof back when the boom was going down. It was actually about to the tune of about 1.5 points, so almost threefold from what we've been seeing since. But the projected for 2015, tell me about the number of 1.7, which is the highest mark it's ever been since they've been tracking this.
It's crazy. That's a crazy high number. I think you had part in this.
How so?
Just people putting together households, having kids.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right.
I was wondering where you're going with that. I was on pins and needles. Yeah.
We, the idea is that this is contributes to demand as well.
Yeah.
So you have people who, we work with a lot of first-time home buyers. We sit down and meet with folks. Sometimes they have just gotten married. Sometimes they're about to get married. Sometimes they're about to have a baby. These are driving factors in household acquisition.
Well, it's funny you say that because millennials who plan to buy a home, can you believe what that number says? So they polled the apartment list renter confidence survey, which is what I wake up to every morning.
Right.
But no, seriously, though, because you think of the juxtapose between where it's been, right? Everybody talking about the millennials stuck in the molasses. Well, over half of them plan to buy a home in the next 3 years. And even the 18 to 24-year-olds are up at almost 40%.
That's amazing.
Encouraging. Also hung on the hat of the fact that first-time home buyers still represent the majority of the market. I think they were to the tune of, 51.4%?
Yeah, over half.
Over half still. I don't need to ask you what that tells you because I think that's pretty obvious. It's been a theme we've talked about in previous shows. Now, here's what's interesting, though. The purchase mortgages are up 20%. Now, that's your game. What theme is that telling us?
Well, in the times when I think there's some uncertainty, in the times when the market's a little scraggly, what you see is a lot of investors jumping in, right? A lot of cash, a lot of projections. And so if people are acquiring properties as their primary residence, you might be able to make the conclusion that the market's a little bit more stable. People are going to live there for longer periods of time. They're not flips and they're not overevaluated.
Well, I'm going to be the negative lunch lady then because the next stat that I pulled out from the Turner Center, This is sort of a done,
yeah.
right? The percentage of rental share, and this is the owner-occupied single-family detached homes, is higher than it's ever been since 2006. What's that telling you?
Well, they're incremental increases. They're not huge, so they're a little bit at a time. But I think what we're seeing is people kind of getting hip to the idea that if you want to grow wealth for yourself or your family, oftentimes you can do this through property acquisition. You know, you buy your first home, maybe you don't sell it. Maybe you keep that as a rental and build your profile. I mean, we help a lot of people make that plan.
Well, and the thing that jumps off for me is that this is a national stat. I would say locally, this is even more so true.
Yeah,
would you not agree? Especially back, I remember in 2013, it seemed like if you had multiple offers, at least half of them were all cash and didn't want to ever occupy the property, right?
Right.
So there was a big land grab that took place. That is definitely, I think, locally also attributing to the skyrocketing in rents, which is the next slide that I wanted to talk about. By the way, gang, all these slides are going to be posted up after the show over at at secretstashradio.com, so you can get an idea about all these things and the pretty pictures that we're talking about today. The other one, though, so you might say buoying that last, is the reason why people are actually thinking about buying a home. So these are like our greatest pool of home shoppers,
right.
First-time buyers, 25 to 34-year-olds. So increase in income is 35. That's the highest mark. How cool is that, especially flying in the face of all the pundits saying that our economy isn't doing that good?
Yeah.
Well, 35%, the highest category, people are saying because they're making more money is why they want to buy a house.
Right.
That's encouraging. Tired of their current home. I think that's always the case. So I'm just going to punt
on that. That's a weird
one.
category.
Yeah, everybody's tired of their current home in some category of respect. Favorable home prices. Wonder how San Diegans might agree or disagree with that one. That'd be curious. But favorable interest rates, no question. I'm actually surprised that it's fourth on the list.
Sure.
And then I think, again, if this was a local poll, the fifth on the list of increasing rents would probably be first.
Yeah, increasing rents. I mean, I hear that every time someone comes in. If they're a renter now and they're looking to buy, that's their number one.
Now, I want to end with this last one with you, brother, because this one I think is probably the most interesting stat we're going to share all day. It's the average mortgage stats for millennials. So this is tracking from the first half of 2015 from Realtor.com. Share with us what those four numbers are and what they mean to you.
Yeah, good. So we see FICO scores. That's one of the things that obviously you're using to qualify for a mortgage. And we can see those trail upward and downward. FICO scores at 714 for the average millennial purchaser.
That's incredible.
It's a really good score considering I think somewhere in the 680s is considered more average, right? Maybe 700 at this point.
And usually when you say average, it's people that even know about FICO and have worked on it for years because they probably got burned. These are the millennials.
Well, I'll tell you, there's been this advent of utilities out there. There's FICO score websites and all kinds of things that you can use to start monitoring and tracking these things. So I think that's helped. Down payment, 7.1%.
That's impressive.
That's creeping towards 10. And that people really used to get stuck at the 5% range.
Or less.
So, or less. Mortgage interest rates hovering right around 4%. Everybody knows the rates are great.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's national, by the way, which is cool. DTI, this one stood out to me. Debt to income ratio, the amount you earn versus the amount you're spending on all your housing and debt, they're at 36%. That's actually a relatively lower number than I would expect to see.
I'm going to go golf clap for millennials out there for picking up the ball and running with it. This is fantastic. This is exciting and is also fueling every other segment right now in the housing market. So all of us need to be applauding for the advent, or you might say the comeuppance of the millennials in this category. Speaking of comeuppance, we got Jeremy Beck in the house, co-founder of the Greenhouse Group. You can catch him, by the way, in all of his splendor over at thegreenhousegroupinc.com/Jeremy. I'm sure there's probably a ridiculous
There's a whole webpage dedicated to me. That's cool.
Of you over there for your fans. But I got you in the studio today for a very specific reason. We're tracking down what all of these numbers mean to us locally. So, gang, coming up, we're going to answer what is the number one biggest thing that just happened recently, and this is literally in the last week or two, that is going to have a direct effect on whether you can buy right now and to what tune. And we'll share with that coming up right after this. Secret Stash Radio, Real Talk. We'll be right back.